According to Acts, the fearful crew lowered their sails and dropped a sea anchor into the water to slow their movement towards Syrtis. A sea anchor is like a big parachute in the water to stabilize the ship in the waves and currents. And then the sailors began to throw cargo and equipment overboard to lighten the load. Day after day, the wind and the waves pounded against the ship, weakening the timbers and soaking the passengers. Everyone on board was cold, sick, hungry, and afraid.
Luke wrote, "When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved." Acts 27:20.
For 2 weeks, they were adrift, being driven by the winds, expecting the end with every wave. But the vessel held together, and they were no longer being driven toward the Syrtis sands off Libya. Here's what happened next, according to Luke's dramatic first-person account.
On the 14th night, we were still being driven across the Adriatic Sea when about midnight, the sailors sensed they were approaching land. They took soundings and found that the water was 120 feet deep. A short time later, they took soundings again and found that it was 90 feet deep. Fearing that we would be dashed against the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. In an attempt to escape from the ship, the sailors let the lifeboat down into the sea, pretending they were going to lower some anchors from the bow. Then Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, "Unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved." So the soldiers cut the ropes that held the lifeboat and let it drift away. Just before dawn, Paul urged them all to eat. "For the last 14 days," he said, "you have been in constant suspense and have gone without food. You haven't eaten anything. Now I urge you to take some food. You need it to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head." After he said this, he took some bread and gave thanks to God. When daylight came, they did not recognize the land, but they saw a bay with a sandy beach where they decided to run the ship aground if they could. Cutting loose the anchors, they left them in the sea and at the same time untied the ropes that held the rudders. Then they hoisted the foresail to the wind and made for the beach. But the ship struck a sandbar and ran aground. The bow stuck fast and would not move, and the stern was broken to pieces by the pounding of the surf. Acts 27:27 through 41.
So according to the rest of Luke's account, the Roman soldiers wanted to kill the prisoners so that they couldn't escape in all the chaos. But Julius, wanting to spare Paul's life, said no. He ordered everyone to jump overboard and swim for it. So they did. All 276 people on board. And so, Paul's promise of everyone escaping and surviving came true. And they one by one washed ashore on the island of Malta.
This is the beautiful island of Malta. Malta is part of a small archipelago in the Mediterranean Sea about 58 miles south of Italy. The island is about 17 miles long and 9 miles wide, the largest of the 3 main islands in the archipelago of Malta, Gozo, and Comino. This large plateau in the center of Malta has been home to the island's main settlement for centuries. Now known as Medina, the site is considered one of the best preserved examples of a walled medieval city in all of Europe.